Hello, Angela. It's really nice to see you. We haven't said much more than hello to each other since you were married. But I have seen you around church, and I know that you've been involved with religious education and have joined the Women's Alliance. Are you finding this a welcoming place for you?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Minister. Actually, the church has been a great place to find myself since I moved here from the city, and people are so kind, and I've really started to make some friends.
Well, I'm very glad it's a good place for you. But when you phoned me this morning, you sounded troubled, and you wanted to come and see me as quickly as you could. Can you tell me what's happening?
Well, it's really hard to talk about this with anyone. But I guess things aren't going so well between Josh and me.
Oh, I'm sorry. It sounds like you're having a tough time. Can you tell me more? What is happening?
Well, everything started out so rosy. We were so in love at our wedding, and Josh really seems to like the kids, and he wanted to do everything for me. Our marriage was like a dream come true. It came so soon after my divorce from Johnny, my first husband. Josh's promises just really seemed like my salvation.
Well, and then what happened?
Well, suddenly everything just seemed to go topsy-turvy. It's like everything that was good went bad, and I suddenly felt like I was in the same miserable kind of marriage that I'd worked so hard to get out of.
Well, it sounds like it's pretty confusing for you. Can you tell me what you mean by going topsy-turvy?
Well, I mean, Josh is angry at me most of the time, and he thinks I'm spending too much time at church. He doesn't want me seeing other people. He wants me to stay home more, and he just acts really mean some of the time.
Well, what does he do when he acts mean?
Well, his voice gets really loud and angry, and well, he criticizes everything I do, and he's even broken some of my things.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. What has he broken?
There was this really beautiful jewelry box that my grandmother gave me when I got married the first time. And Josh knows how important it is to me. It's a family heirloom. We had a really heated argument one day, and then later that day I noticed that there was a huge scratch in the top of the box. And I know that he did it to get back at me.
Well, has he ever hurt you physically, you or the children?
Yes. He's grabbed my arm hard and shoved me against a wall or the kitchen counter a couple of times. I'm actually still bruised from the last time. And last week, he wanted to have sex, and I told him that I didn't want to. But he got really angry and insisted, and I was scared, so I did it. And afterwards, I felt so terrible, like a used thing. I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking about that feeling.
I'm sorry, you must have been very frightened and feeling humiliated. No one should have to experience that. That's abuse.
Well, I mean, Josh is a really good man, and I know that he still loves me and cares about our family. I need to find out what it is I did wrong and fix it, and then everything will go back to normal. I know I'm a good wife and that I can make this work.
Angela, you have done nothing wrong. And no one should be abused, regardless of the circumstances.
Well, for one thing, Josh is very sensitive about my seeing other people, especially because his first two wives cheated on him, and that's why he had to divorce them. So I just need to convince him that I'm loyal.
Well, this may surprise you, Angela, but I knew both of Josh's other wives. And the story that you have told me is really not what happened as far as his marriage was concerned. Both of the other women divorced Josh because they felt threatened, they felt abused, they were not trusted. He didn't like them to see any of their friends. And it sounds as though the same thing is happening again to you.
Well, but maybe I can make it different this time. I mean, I pray to God for guidance and help. I used to get such comfort from God's presence when I was going to the Catholic Church. But sometimes now, it just feels like I'm being punished for my sins. I really love this church. What I hear here makes sense to me. I like what my children are learning about accepting diversity and loving themselves without worrying about sin. But I'm confused about how I feel about God right now.
Angela, God lives in this church too. We don't have the symbols and the sacraments that you had in the Catholic Church. But here we have the strength of love, and we have the meaning of justice, and they are here for you. Our UU principles include a belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and that includes you, Angela, and your children. I believe you can find the love and the trust that you need here among the people in this congregation and feel the dignity and value as a human being.
Well, actually, Josh tells me that Unitarians don't even believe in God, and that, God is just some sort of fantasy that people imagine when they can't deal with things that trouble them or things that they can't explain. But I don't think that's true.
Well, I agree with you, Angela. Josh's theology is incorrect. Unitarian Universalists have no creed about a belief in God. People are free to choose to believe in God or in any God that in their imagination, or they're free not to believe in God at all. What we do treasure is your right to choose what to believe.
Okay. So, even if God hears me in this place, I worry that no one else will. Josh has been in this church, in this town, for his entire life. His mother was the president of the church board for the last 3 years. Who's going to believe my story when I just got here?
For starters, Angela, I believe your story. And I believe strongly that everything that you have told me is true. And there are people in this congregation who will believe you as well, because there are people here who have had similar experiences that you have had with Josh. And it might be good for you to talk with them and to feel their understanding.
I've been afraid to talk to anybody about what's been happening. I've even been too ashamed to talk to my parents. They were so disappointed when I stopped going to Mass and moved away from them. I used to talk to my mom every day, and she hasn't called me in months. Josh says that they're backwards and hateful, and that I shouldn't talk to them anymore. But now I'm afraid that no one here will understand me and that everyone will side with Josh. And it seems so unfair, and I feel so alone.
Angela, there are people here who will be glad to listen to you. And they will try to understand you because many of them have gone through things too. And they believe in the actions that underlie our Unitarian Universalist principles of justice, equality, and compassion in human relations. And not only women will be sympathetic and understanding. Men hold these principles just as dearly. And you may be surprised to learn that there are several men in this congregation who have been victims of abuse as well.
Really? I have a hard time imagining that a woman could abuse a stronger man.
Well, there are different kinds of abuse. And emotional abuse can be just as damaging as deep bruises and broken bones. And there are several gay and lesbian couples in this congregation, and their relationships can also be subject to abuse.
How likely is that? I mean, I thought that homosexuals were all about peace and love.
Well, gay and lesbian people have the same complex relationships as the rest of us do. The same hopes and frustrations, concerns and problems, and sometimes the abuse and violence that infects heterosexual relationships also affects homosexual relationships.
But there's no real abuse in my marriage. We just need to tweak a few things and then everything's going to be fine.
Angela, the reality is you have been abused. You've been threatened and you've been injured physically. Let me ask you an important question. Do you feel safe? And do you feel that your children are safe in the home with Josh?
I think so. Maybe. I don't know. And that's the problem. I don't know. And I don't know what to do now.
Have you thought about moving to a place where Josh cannot hurt you?
I'm not going to leave him. I mean, I'm not going to get another divorce. I can't. I'll feel like a failure, like I can't keep any husband happy, and then I don't deserve to be loved.
Angela, we're not talking about divorce now. We are talking about your safety and the safety of your children. And this is the most important thing that I'm concerned about right now. And you need to be somewhere where you can think by yourself and think this through, and somewhere where Josh cannot know where you are and cannot hurt you. And I'd like to have you think over your situation without worrying every day about being abused.
Well, what'll happen to Josh? We exchanged vows right here in this church. I can't just throw them away and leave.
At this time, Angela, it is your well-being that I'm really concerned about. Josh will survive without you. Your wedding vows were based upon mutual trust and love, and Josh's abusive behavior has annulled that agreement. And until Josh learns a different way of behaving with you other than with abuse, then you two really should not be together. And until then, he doesn't deserve to be with you. And right now, I don't think you're in a safe position. And I'd like to have you look into going to a safe place to be for a while, to think about what you'd like to have come next. I have a phone number here of somewhere you can call and see what might work for you. Please phone me if you decide to go, and I will call you later on this afternoon to see how you're doing. And if you decide not to go, then I would like you to come back in a few days so we can talk again and I can hear how you're doing. Is that all right with you?
I think so. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for believing me. Thanks for the phone number. I'll let you know what I decide.
Good luck.
Mm-hmm.